Okay, it's 4:09. I call this meeting to order, the Insurance Committee. Could we go ahead and get a roll call, please?
All right, Jeff Balzo, I'm present. Eric Diamond,
Present.
Mike Dixon, is absent. Rachel Drake,
Present.
Vicky Cooper, absent. Don Miller, absent. Robert Munson,
Present.
Joseph Silvera,
Present.
Mary Beth Akers, is absent. All right, we have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, item 2.0, public comment. Is there any public comment at this time? No, seeing none, thank you. 2.01, action to elect a chairperson of the Health Insurance Committee for a one-year term expiring December 31st, 2023, from among the current membership, Robert Munson, Don Echeverry, Rachel Drake, Diane Lyon, Mike Dixon, Tony McMillan, Eric Diamond, Vicky Cooper, and Jeff Bazzo. And actually, it's not Diane Lyon, it is Joseph Silvera, sorry. So that's a mistake on the agenda, but he is the seated person for that spot. Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to nominate Rachel Drake.
For vice chair or chair?
It's vice chair.
Vice chair, okay, so we have a nomination for vice chair. Is there a second?
Actually, vice chair is the next agenda.
Oh, sorry, we're on chair, sorry.
So do it over again.
Yeah, we'll wait, yeah, so we'll wait on that.
Okay, so I'll jump in and nominate Jeff Bazzo for chair position.
Okay, do we have a second for that?
Eric Diamond, I'll second.
Okay, any discussion?
I do have discussion, just as a question. In general, are you not able to continue?
No, I've been the chair, I think, long enough, and I think it's time for us to, have other people lead. So I'm really happy to support Jeff.
Just a question, thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Any other comments or discussion? Go ahead, Jeff.
I don't know if this is where I'm supposed to do this, but I accept the nomination.
Thank you.
Yeah,
It's always
or-
nice to vote for somebody who's accepted than, rather than find out afterwards they really didn't want it. Okay. Seeing no other discussion, all in favor of Jeff Bazzo as the chairperson for the Health Insurance Committee for a one-year term expiring December 31st, 2023, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay?
Aye, but I do have a point of order. It is 2024.
Sorry, you are correct. Sorry. Expiring December 31st, 2024, sorry. I'll take the vote again. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? Okay, motion is adopted. We'll move to 2.02, action and election of a vice chair of the Health Insurance Committee for a one-year term expiring December 31st, 2024, from among the current membership, Robert Munson, Don Echeverry, Rachel Drake, Joseph Silvera, sorry, Mike Dixon, Tony McMillan, Eric Diamond, Vicky Cooper, and Jeff Bazzo. Well, not Jeff Bazzo anymore. Is there a motion? I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to make a motion for Rachel Drake, vice chair.
Okay, there's been a motion for Rachel Drake as the vice chair. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I'll also take this moment to accept a nomination.
Thank you, Rachel.
Has there been any other expressed interest from other members that are not present currently?
Not that I know of, no.
That's all.
Nobody has contacted me.
Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other discussion, all in favor of Rachel Drake as the vice chair of the Health Insurance Committee for a one-year term expiring December 31st, 2024, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, nay. Seeing none, motion is adopted. We have a new chair, and Jeff and I are going to switch spots. Let him run this meeting. Thank you, Jeff. I'd just like to take a minute to say thank you to the committee for supporting me over the last couple of years. And congratulations.
Thanks, Robert, and thanks for all your work over the last several years. Okay, we will move on to item 2.03, presentation and discussion of Washoe County School District Group Insurance Claims Experience Report as of January 2024. This is for information and discussion only. Mr. Barnes, welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Lloyd Barnes, LP Insurance Services for the record. Nice to be Jeff's first order of business as a new chairman. Congratulations. Okay, so we're jumping into our first data set for the new year. And again, just as I go into this, just keep in mind one month doesn't a trend make. So we'll keep that in perspective. So as we go to the Exhibit 1, the first exhibit, our executive summary, again, you can see here, we've got 1 month comparing to last year in total. We've got employee counts up about 2.2% at 7141. Dependent units are pretty flat at 2221. And our total dependents are also pretty consistent with what we saw last year. Our medical RX dental vision claims were up quite a bit as compared to last year, running 6.95 million compared to 5.9 million in total last year. That's for the 1 month compared to last year's average, so up about 17%, and then on a composite basis, that results in 974.17 compared to 850, so up about 14.5%. Fixed costs pretty flat, actually down just slightly at $382,000 for the month, for total composite cost of $7.339 million compared to $6.33 million last year, so up 15.9%, and on a composite cost basis, 1,027. So again, I think the commentary here is don't get too worked up about this one way or another because it is only 1 month. However, we have seen a bit of an uptick for a lot of January claims for a number of our clients. Not quite sure what that means. We did try to look into it a little bit on a few different groups of data, and it seems like there might have been a little bit of catch-up of some claims towards the end of last year that all got paid in January. It's a very anecdotal, very loose comment, but that did seem to be something we saw for some of the providers that were providing data into the TPAs.
Yeah, well, I have a question, let's say it's a question. One thing that seems to happen is our expenses pick up after a break. And this year, I think the winter break went into January 9th, so maybe that was part of it. But I know there's a lot more to it than that. The composite cost is up quite a bit this year. That's on a per employee basis, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's total cost divided by number of employees and no employees and retirees.
Okay, and is that more of probably of an inflationary expense that we're starting to see, or is that still not hit yet?
I wouldn't say we can attribute any of these cost factors to an inflationary factor from that standpoint. I mean, again, as I think I've talked in the past, the inflationary pressures that we're seeing and that we will see in our industry, I think I don't envision them coming in chunks. I think it's going to be just a higher overall trend or inflationary rate that we're going to see for both medical and prescription drugs. They won't come in jumps, or I don't anticipate them coming in jumps, though those jumps are more attributable to usage and certain situations within the utilization that we would see. Going back to your first comment, though, about some of the seasonality, keep in mind claims hit usually 2 to 3 months after the usage. So it's just sometimes, it's not going to be a direct correlation to when summer breaks are, winter breaks are, and things like that, because you usually see a little bit of lag for when those claims actually get into the Anthem system, get paid, and get actually represented on the report, so.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that clarification.
I think I fully broke it. Okay, moving on. Exhibit 2 is our graph for the month. Again, we'll see these upticks if they continue. We'll see them move on the graph. But because this is a rolling 12-month average, it's a fairly smooth line there. You will see the revenue line for the premium adjustments that were made January 1, but the blue line is still pretty flat, tilted up just a little bit. So we'll start to see what that does. And again, trying to keep in mind that this is a long game. We'll be looking at this over the course of the next few months as we get into our projection season, which, as Mackenzie reminds me, is coming very quickly. Going into the details on Exhibit 3, again, I won't spend too much time here because we only have 1 month, and the executive summary summarizes the 1 month. So, no real need to go into the level of details here. But you can see the breakout of employee versus dependent claims, and then the fixed cost. For total plan cost, then you've got your active and retirees. So, I think with that we can jump to Exhibit 12. Which is really just our large claim information. And you can see that we did have one claimant already start being tracked at $347,000 in paid amounts in January. And so that one has already hit the report. We never like that. We never like to see them this early in the year, but it is what it is. So. From that standpoint, I think that's all I had for my report.
Robert?
Just for clarification, I know it's gone up every year. What is the point where, on the high dollar claims, that we hit our stop loss?
Yeah, you can see on the next exhibit on the very top, it's $425,000. We start tracking it at 212.
Any other questions for Lloyd? All right, Lloyd, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
Also, for the record, Mike Dixon is now here, so I've added him to the roll. And before we move on to our next item, we are getting our presenter. Eric, for item 2.2, or 2.03.
2.03, yes, it was more of a comment based on the claims experience report. I was looking through the agenda, I didn't see where we're getting a presentation for the claims paid. But I did have a comment from some of my constituents who have been receiving or experiencing some issues on getting claims paid. So that was just a comment that I wanted on the record, that it's something that we're gonna have to agendize or take a look at and make sure that that report, because there's the detailed report on claims payment, and I just didn't see that agendized for today.
Right, that's usually the health and dental one,
Right.
correct? Yeah, I believe we moved to reporting on that on a quarterly basis. But Mackenzie, can we get that out to members?
The claims report from Anthem?
Yes.
Yeah, they'll be here in person in March, so you'll get to see those reports next month.
Okay, perfect.
But if a member does have an issue with a claim getting paid, they're welcome to reach out to me and I can help connect them with the resources they might need.
We'll chat soon, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to item 2.04, presentation and discussion of Washoe County School District Insurance Internal Service Fund as of December 2023 for information and discussion only. And we have with us our controller, Marty Williams.
Hello, Martin Williams for the controller, for the record. The financials are, for the most part, consistent with last year. A few things that stand out. The accounts receivable is, the accounts receivable is almost $3 million, where last year at this time we had 0. This is monies. Sorry, I'm getting confused with the different financial statement that I was just looking at. I knew what that was, but I'll have to look that up. The rest of the reports are very consistent with last year's report.
Marty, was the receivable due to the pharmacy rebates? Is that what it was?
Yes, that is what it is. Thank you. The positive side is that we are showing much less of a loss this year than we were last year, which primarily is due to changes in claims from last year to this year. Are there any questions?
I'm not seeing any questions. I do have one on the statement you just made about it being related to claims. And that's because these reports don't take into account the, based on the time period, the rate change that occurred on January 1st, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any questions for Marty? No? Okay, well, Marty, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to item 2.05, presentation and discussion of Washoe County School District Group Insurance Wellness Program Report to cover current events and programs as of January 2024 for information and discussion only. Mackenzie?
Thank you, Jeff. While I wasn't the first agenda you introduced, I have the most on the agenda, so I think that counts for something too. So for our wellness updates for February, our mindfulness-based stress reduction program is live. We have about 10 members who are participating in the program, which is actually a pretty good group size for a program like this. It started on January 24th and will run through March 13th. They're actually going to meet tonight. As a reminder, benefits to participating in this program include stress reduction, overall health improvement, enhanced focus, and more. One thing that I think is really unique about this program that I'm excited to dive deeper into is, I think last time we met, I talked about how this program has a lot of strong evidence outside of our school district, which makes me feel confident that we can bring it to our members. But the instructor has agreed to give an anonymous pre-test and post-test that will directly analyze stress for our members who are participating in the program. So we'll not only have evidence from lots of other strong research, but we'll also start to develop some research internally too. For our next update, our Virgin Pulse Healthy Habit Challenge this month is focused on building routines to prevent decision fatigue, and that was ran last week. And lastly, we are in the midst of our process of evaluating what we implemented this past school year, what we thought went well, what we thought we could improve on, and how we can use that information to plan for next school year. Are there any questions on wellness?
Robert?
I just have a question. As you're planning for next school year, are you looking at doing a health fair perhaps next year? I get questions about this from members every year, and we haven't done it for a while.
Yeah, I think COVID was the reason that we stopped that initially. I would be interested in developing some form of an event, but I have a hard time implementing programs that we can't tie it to long-term health impacts. And not much of the research on health fairs has strong evidence that shows long-term health impacts. So I am a big proponent of offering more events in person for people to attend, but I would like them to be a little bit more tailored and long-term. Yeah.
Robert?
I will say that the health fairs, I get the health fair aspect of it probably didn't have a big impact, but the fact that a lot of people got their flu shots and updated shots and what is it called, the blood work and things like that, I think it was a nice way to get a lot of people to come together at once and get a lot of that taken care of. So, and I do get questions from members all the time, are we, about it. So it's something to keep on the radar, I guess.
Eric?
To kind of echo the same thing, I know that pre-COVID, we had our first men's health fair, and I know that it resonated pretty well. I think there's the women's health fair that was pretty well established. I'm not sure if that's still going on. And there was, at least that I can recall, there was a really good response to the men's health fair as well, which, to be completely honest, I usually don't buy into all that, but I was participating. And I was really actually pretty surprised at how useful some of the information was, and then COVID shut it down. That makes sense, but
Yeah.
absolutely, I have heard at least one other member talk about it where it's like, well, are we doing the men's thing again? And I was like, well, I don't know. So COVID was a definite excuse, but I think if there's any data that's going to be effective for it, it was actually well received.
Okay. Eric, I think you bring up a good point that, health fairs, the purpose that they can serve is information sharing, right? And so it's something you might not have gone to, but you learned a lot at. So I think that it's still definitely on the table. I think we have to talk with budget, see what that looks like, and then also personnel-wise, what we can make happen. But we can definitely, I'll bring it back to the team to talk about what fairs could look like next year.
Any other questions for Mackenzie? Okay, we'll move on to the next item. And that is item 2.06, presentation and discussion of Washoe County School District Group Insurance waiver of contributions for information and discussion only. Mackenzie, you're up again.
I printed out the attachment just because I know it could be hard to see up there. So if we can. All right, so we had a request to review our waiver of contributions that's included in our plan document. I think before I start, I want to clarify that this program is specifically called the waiver of contributions. You'll see it called a lot of different things, which I know can get confusing. I've seen waiver of premium, and our form actually says waiver of insurance benefits, but if you look for this in our plan document, it actually says waiver of contributions. So on the left side of this attachment, this is a screenshot of the verbiage that's included in our plan document. And I broke it down into two different pieces. So the top is the criteria, so what the employees have to do to be eligible for this program. And then the second half is the actual process. So if they do become eligible for a waiver of contributions, what that process of actually earning, I guess you could say, the waiver of contribution, what that actually looks like. And then on the right is the form that they would have to turn into our formerly risk management department, now employee services of our talent department, what they would have to turn in order for us to review if they are eligible for the waiver. I can go into a more in-depth description of the criteria and the process, or we can start with questions. It depends on what the committee would find more useful.
Are there any questions for Mackenzie or Robert?
Could you just go through if, like, kind of just step by step what an employee would need to do and how that would look and how it would impact their insurance and stuff, just to give us sort of an idea, overview of it?
Yeah.
I'm reading it, but.
Well, it's obviously super easy to read too. Robert, I thank you for your question because it allows me to give a shameless shout out to our benefits techs. Our 3 benefits techs do such a wonderful job of walking our employees through what this process would look like. One of the main criteria points is being on an approved leave of absence. And so when one of our members goes on an approved leave of absence, they're automatically on our benefits tech's radar. So they're monitoring every paycheck, whether it's a cycle 1 getting paid once a month or cycle 2 getting paid twice. They're always checking to make sure that their members who are on that approved leave of absence are earning a paycheck. And if it looks like they're not going to earn a paycheck, they're going to be in communication with their member. So that's the initial piece. I think my biggest piece of advice would be to make sure that the member's in contact with the benefits tech, because they'll be able to walk you through the nitty-gritty process of it. Once it does look like they are going to be in an unpaid status, because that's really when this program becomes effective. They'll walk them through signing the actual document, what this looks like, and how, like, kind of what the timeline would be for bringing this back to our team for review and approval.
Mackenzie, how many employees do we have or average each year that go on this plan or have the waiver?
It's a good question, Jeff. And I know you're not going to be happy with our data is not well kept answer. But I think we're starting to get creative in how we start to analyze how many people we do actually have on the waiver and how many people we don't. Currently, we have less than 5 on our waiver earlier today. But I can look back at last school year versus fiscal year and try to pull some data for you.
Okay, thank you. Robert?
You said brought back to your team for approval or not approval. I'm just curious, who is that team? Is it, just one person? Is it a group of people? Because I know it used to, years ago, it came to this committee and
Right.
we didn't get the names of the people. We just got a number, a file number or whatever. And then it was switched because, it was sort of an automatic, you just automatically do it. So it was seen to do that. So when you say you take it back to your team to discuss, who is that team?
Yeah, so our benefits desk is the first person who comes in contact with it. They'll bring I call it a packet. I don't know if they like that, but it's essentially a packet. It has the approved leave of absence. It has the documentation that essentially backs up their approved leave of absence. So that comes from the HR side of our house. So I request all of that documentation. Because they're so wonderful, they most of the time bring me any communication that they've had with the member. So I have a good full picture of what the member's requesting. And then they also bring this documentation showing that the member did actually apply for a waiver of contributions. And then the benefits tech and I will have a discussion about what the situation is, what the approved leave of absence looks like, and what documentation we have to actually approve a waiver in that scenario. And then I will review it with my supervisor most of the time as well. Yeah.
All right, go ahead. Oh, okay, all right.
So it's titled Waiver of Insurance Benefit. What exactly is being waived when this document is completed by a member, and for what purpose?
Yeah, so this document only comes into play if a member is going to be unpaid while on an approved leave of absence, right? So if they fall into an unpaid status, that means that their benefits have to terminate based on our plan document. So that's the only scenario that they would become eligible for something like this. And when we say a waiver, it means that we're waiving their premium or their contribution that we would be using for them for their medical, dental, vision, and life insurance. So it essentially keeps their benefits active while in an unpaid status. Does that help?
It does, and I appreciate that. And the example given is specifically for an approved leave of some form, but I also see that it's also for being hurt on and off the job, and then also speaks partially, at least, to a situation of workman's compensation, which I think, just as a comment to my other members, is something that is important and can get very technical very quickly. So as we start talking about altering benefits and altering contributions in a situation that involves workman's compensation, I get very leery of it first, and I want to have a complete understanding of what benefits are being waived, what monies are being transferred or not transferred in the name of the member while they're navigating that. That's already a very complex system.
Right. So I guess I do want to clarify that when we say waived, it means that they still have access to full benefits, right? We're waiving the fact that they are unpaid in this scenario. Does that help?
It does, except
Okay.
for the fact, like I said, it gets complicated when we're talking about unpaid by whom. Does that include while they're receiving compensation from workman's compensation, I guess would be my opposite question. So we have a member listed as a first criteria, has been hurt on or off the job or sustained serious injury or non-induced illness. If that member is no longer able to work and is on workman's compensation for an on-the-job injury, is that still considered income?
Yeah, so if they're receiving any form of a paycheck, this does not apply to them. It's a matter of if they have depleted all of their FMLA and are unpaid in every scenario, other scenario that we could have.
Robert?
Following up on that, though, it says any income from employment other than workers' compensation. So if they're getting money from workers' compensation, they could still, and they're just not getting a check from the district, this would still apply. Am I not correct?
I think that the verbiage makes it confusing because it's any form of a paycheck from the district. If they receive any form of a payment, this doesn't apply to them.
But other than workers' compensation, right? Benefits. Sorry.
We
No, don't be sorry.
have a guest to help answer that question. Kate?
I can help answer the work comp question. If you are only receiving compensation from the workers' compensation carrier, you would be eligible to apply for the waiver. If your paycheck is running through the district's process, you would not be eligible for the waiver because there's the check to charge against for the insurance.
Hit the nail on the head. Thank you for that. Nice one. And I guess, again, as just a general comment to my other board members, is the verbiage in here, I'll have to find it, but where it was at the sole discretion of risk management after processing this, because I see that this is for a period of 6 months, and then would that recur? This person, if this were to go longer than 6 months, would reapply?
So in the bottom half of the process, there's additional language on if the person would like to apply for an extension of the waiver of contributions, that is available.
Thank you, Kate. Robert?
And so from what you said, once they no longer receive compensation from the district, once they're no longer receiving any kind of check, then this waiver they could apply for and would receive.
Yeah.
Right. So they would wait do they do this while they're still getting compensation, knowing that their compensation is going to run out? Or do they wait till the day that their compensation runs out to actually apply? And they can get 6 months and then an additional 6 months, so basically a year. Is that not correct?
You're going to make me read the specific language and find it up here, huh, Robert? That's why I gave a shout out to our benefits techs, because they're really good about taking care of this prior to someone becoming unpaid. If they wait until they are already in an unpaid status, it puts us on a very short timeline. And so that's why I encourage them to be in communication with our department prior to them becoming unpaid.
Okay, any further questions for Mackenzie? Eric?
It's not a question, just a general comment. Okay, that was me. Just in general, I'm a bit reluctant on this particular item, only because as an association leader, it's difficult to hand over a statement like "at the sole discretion of risk management." And that's not to suggest at all that that department or any school district department is biased or unfair. But I think also as association leaders, we need to take into account such a serious statement as "at the sole discretion of risk management," without any input. I think what might be a little bit more amenable is if we might be included here. I know that there's been some sensitive times that we've had appeals for very specific situations in which members ask for extended coverage from this body before. We haven't heard one in a while, but if this might be a process that we might be included in as a board, I think would be a bit more amenable.
Sarah, before I get to you, Robert, Rachel had her mic on.
If Robert's comment is related to there, let's cover that first, because mine is a separate.
Robert?
So this, this body used to hear appeals, and then, I'm not sure exactly, it was pre-COVID, but there was a point where we stopped hearing the appeals. Lloyd might know a little bit more about that. That had to do with not only, I think, liability, but Obamacare and a bunch of different things. So we stopped hearing those appeals. But I would say that I don't think that, and these were taken again because they were seen, as it was explained to me years ago, as they're just automatic. And the renewal of it's pretty much automatic. If they meet the requirement, it's automatically granted, so there was no need to necessarily bring it back to this body. I would say that I would be for some kind of appeal process, because when, it's just like, this is, who's that body making that decision, and there is no appeal process. I think that that's something that in the future, if we look at the plan document like we do usually in the spring, it might be something that we talk about.
Mackenzie?
I don't have all of the historical context on why why these waiver of contributions were no longer approved by this committee, but I do know that part of the reason was the delay in coverage. Since we only convene once a month, if we wait for a waiver to, depending on the timing of when the member submits their waiver of contributions request, it could be a delay in coverage based on approval here.
Eric?
Is it possible then to add a statement along those lines that there be an appeal process? I think I do tend to agree with that, because I do understand, I think, the historical aspect that you have brought, that this body doesn't necessarily make those decisions anymore, potentially due to a liability process, if I remember distantly. I can appreciate that, but I think also, like I said, that language is very strong. It's a heavy decision to make, left completely to the sole discretion of a single department. And I think even just a simple statement of saying, okay, fine, yeah, make that decision, and should there be a reasonable request for an appeal, that maybe we should hear that, or have an ability to hear that, or have an avenue for a second thought. So thank you, Robert, for that. And if it's possible to maybe just review this same process with an idea that maybe we can have an appeals process of some kind that gives additional input.
I think that process in general would have to be something that we bring to this committee from the get-go. So I know that the waiver of contributions process is something pretty unique to our organization. I don't think anyone else in our county has a program like this. So I can do some research on what appeals in general look like, and then we can talk about potential changes to our plan document. Yeah.
Rachel?
I just want to confirm that what's in front of us is what's existed about this process for some time. There are no changes in this document that we're looking at right now. This is just the process as it is, all put together in one spot.
Yeah, the most recent change would be that last
The 6
criteria of, would be they have to be an employee with us for 6 months.
Thank you for the confirmation.
Robert?
Yeah, we made that change when we went to a 30, or dropped the 90-day waiting period. It's just my question, because you said it several times, it's here in the document, that it's when they go into unpaid status, when they're no longer receiving. And I've had members say, people reach out and say that, that actually the waiver goes into effect prior to that, and so sometimes it doesn't last the full 6 months. So I know there's a concern about that, and if it's after they no longer receive a check, then that would be when the waiver would then kick in, right?
Yeah, I think that the verbiage used for the criteria and the process can be a little sticky, right? So when we read the criteria, let's see, the fourth bullet point of that they're on an approved leave of absence, right? And then the next bullet point stating that has a reasonable prognosis of returning to full employment with the Washoe County School District within 6 months from the time the individual went on an approved leave of absence, whether paid or unpaid. So that criteria mentioning that it doesn't matter if they're in a paid or unpaid status, the timeline of the waiver of contributions begins when their approved leave of absence starts. And then farther down in the process, where it says right before the second to last paragraph, it says both the initial and extended waiver of contribution will be coordinated with the approved leave of absence. So that's reinforcing the bullet point in the criteria, but not in addition to the provisions of the Family Medical Leave Act. So we cannot apply the waiver in addition to FMLA.
Robert?
So again, that's something that I think that maybe we want to look at too in the future, is because I wouldn't need a waiver if I'm still receiving benefits from the district, right? So I don't, if, like, I have 320 sick days. I could go out on an approved leave for medical, be out, and then come back for a few months, and then go back out again and come back for a few months. But I wouldn't need a waiver because I have enough sick leave to cover those illnesses, the separate illnesses that I might have, with a reasonable prognosis of returning after each one. But if somebody only had 10 sick days, or they have, say, 60 sick days, and they go out and they get their 60 days of sick leave, their waiver still would only be for 4 months, not for 6 months, because they had 2 months of sick leave that they were using, which paid their benefits regardless. So they really didn't need a waiver at that point. So I think that's something that I think, to me is just, it's like they're getting a waiver, but they're really not getting a waiver because they have the benefits. So it just seems like, yeah, it's sticky. I guess that's the word.
All right, thanks, Mackenzie. Okay. All right, Eric had a question first. Go ahead.
So if somebody has a waiver, they've applied for it, it's approved, there's no issues, and they return to work, are their benefits automatically reinstated when they start to receive benefits as normal?
Yep.
It's automatic, just there's no redo, there's no undo that needs to be followed up. It would just, as their normal check arrives, then their benefits are restored as normal.
Yep. You're receiving a paycheck now. We're good to go.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
Mike?
All right, clearly the most simple question of the day. What is the legal definition of a waiver? Because I feel like when I hear some of your things, I'm even confused now.
I think it's bold of you to say that's the easiest question.
Kevin has this, man. Yeah. I even Googled it, and I'm still not totally sure how it's applying to this conversation. Help me out.
As we've been talking about, there may be a language issue in here, but generally a legal waiver is you're giving up a legal right. You're giving up something that's been either bargained for or contracted for that you have a legal right to. So in a general legal definition sense, that's what a waiver is.
What is happening? I mean, is this thing saying that, Robert, you're confusing me even more now. Somebody gives the cliff notes. Is the waiver, is this saying I'm out of sick time, but I'm trying to self-pay to keep the benefit, or the other way around?
The district's
Robert?
So basically what happens is my sick leave runs out. I know I'm going through, say, cancer treatment or something like that.
Yeah.
Chemotherapy, I'm not going to be able to work for another, say, 3-4 months. So what happens is my sick leave runs out. I'm not being paid. I would typically lose my benefits as well. But because I have all these medical benefits, or medical costs, what I can do is apply for a waiver. And so that basically waives my need to pay, or the districts need to pay for my premium every month, and I will continue to get my insurance benefits through the time that that waiver is in place. Does that make sense? So I'll still be able to go to the doctor. Our insurance will still pay for me, even though I'm not receiving a check. I'm still a district employee. I'm just on an approved leave, a medical leave, for the next 3 months or 6 months or whatever while I go through treatment. And I still have benefits because I'm not required to pay for the monthly premium, and neither is the district. It's being waived.
Mike?
Yes, I think the clarification for me is that at no cost to the employee, they're still accessing the benefit, correct? So I agree with Kevin. I feel like the language is maybe not crystal clear on that. That's just my 2 cents after listening for a while. Because when you say the waiver of insurance benefits, I feel like you're saying I'm waiving, when I first read this tonight, I'm like, this is the case where the person's waiving their desire to have the rights, right? But what we're saying is I want to keep it, even though I'm out of eligibility to have it, correct? All right, I got it. I don't like the title.
Kevin?
Briefly, how I read this, I think waiver actually would be a correct way to define it, because what it is it seems to me it's the district that is waiving the contribution requirement for the employee at the time. And so it's not the employee who's waiving anything, it's a district through the policy that's waiving it. So I think actually the language is actually correct, what we call waiver of contribution. I think that's correct.
So, yeah, on the top right under the title, I think I'm starting to follow. As an employee of WCSD, I am requesting a waiver of the district paid portion of my health premium. That's what you're referring to?
That's right.
Okay. Lloyd, welcome.
Lloyd Barnes, LP Insurance Services, for the record. Just quick point of clarification. The reason contributions is used versus premium is your self-funded plan. Probably very, I don't know about very important, but important to just focus on the word contributions. It's not a premium to an insurance company, self-funded plan. It's a waiver of contributions, to your point. Definitely some clarification I think needs to be made in the document, in the form. And if you can just focus on, it's the waiver of the contributions that the employee is paying. District is still paying their amount because they're funding the self-funded plan. So just another little point of clarification. But I think sort of if you can keep that in your head, that might help.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
I think after both of those clarifications, I would just propose that the title, to me, off the cuff, doesn't match the description unless I'm still missing something.
Unfortunately, we don't have an action item in front of us.
I got you. Yeah, we're just discussing,
But
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for your thoughts on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Eric?
So, and just to solidify my growing understanding, without this document, somebody who's in an unpaid status is going to lose their benefits. Okay, that's a yes.
Does-
Right, but they're going to lose our district benefit. Okay.
Okay. Any further questions on this item? No? All right, thank you all for your thorough discussion. Oh. Do- okay. Summer K, welcome. There should be a little on the mic, on the base of the mic, there should be.
Oh, they're there. Thank you. So I wanted to talk about waiver of contributions because what is in the policy is not the practice of the district, and it's not fair. We had an employee go on a leave of absence, her first sick leave day, like call in, I'm not going to be there today, put it in ASOP, I'm not going to be there today. After the first few days, she realized she was in a situation where she had to take an approved leave of absence. So she put in the paperwork for an approved leave of absence, and she went on her leave. She was paid by the district until January. So November 29th was her first day out, first day calling in sick. She was paid, received a district paycheck until January. In November, she was still out. She had filled out the form for the waiver of benefits for the 6 months and was approved for the renewal of the second 6 months. So you would think that would take her from January to January, right? Because January was her last paycheck? No, it did not. Because some people who are in this room, and I have tried to file a grievance, and I've tried to work with HR, and every person that I talked to said, no, it's the first day they go on a leave of absence. Not even an approved leave of absence, the first day they're absent. And that's when the waiver starts. That doesn't make any sense. This person was paid a January paycheck. Her waiver should have started in February and should have gone to the next February. She came back to work in January. She had to pay for her own insurance from November 29th until she came back to work January 8th. There's a problem with this process, because it's not waiving benefits when the person doesn't have benefits anymore. It's going back to when the person had a leave of absence start and they still had sick leave days and they're still receiving a paycheck. So I would like to ask for a thorough review of how this policy is being implemented and for some clearer language on when it starts and when it finishes. Because every single person I tried to appeal this to and say, can we look at it again? No, we can't look at it again. It's just our practice. It's the first day they were absent. And no one would budge from that. And no one would work with us. And no one would reconsider. And no one would look at, they referred me to this page and they put it in an email and said, see, it's clear there. It's not clear. It's not clear at all. The last paycheck this person received was in January of 2023. It should have lasted her until January of 2024, her waiver, because she was still insured by the district in November and December and part of January. It needs to be fixed for the good of all the people who are on the district insurance. And it shouldn't take me coming up here to do it. The employee's experience should have been considered. It shouldn't take me advocating for the employee to make it right.
Thank you. Okay, so the public comment on that closed that item, so we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda.
I do have a brief statement on that. Not a statement, I have a question to our secretary on that item.
Eric?
Just as a point of order, can we have the public commenter identified? We didn't,
I'm sorry. I'm Summer Kay. I'm the WEA Executive Director.
thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the next item, item 2.07, presentation and discussion of Washoe County School District Group Behavioral Health Services Utilization. Again, this is for information and discussion only, and Mackenzie, this item is yours.
So this request came in for specifically Live Health Online to look at our behavioral health utilization that our members are having with this tool. And so Anthem gave us some data across all of our Live Health Online utilization. And so this is a snapshot of all of 2023. And so in that calendar year, we had 175 new registrations in this portal. For our medical appointments that we had on Live Health Online, we had 246 members reach out. Unfortunately, on the behavioral health side, we had 0 of our members reach out. And on the dermatology side, we had 3 for a total of 249. They give us a little bit more data on the number of users and what their average wait time versus duration of their visit was, and then at the end of all of their appointments, they have a quick survey for the members, and so there's some quick data on what our members had to say about their experience. Next, they shared some graphs on our registrations and our total visits, and they seem to align pretty well that in the winter we have more people reaching out. And then on the second page of this report, it just goes into more description about the specifics on why people reached out for this service. Most of it, to no surprise, is all about medical. There is none about behavioral health. Does anyone have any questions on these charts before I move on?
Not seeing any questions right now.
Okay, awesome. Deidre, can we go to the next attachment for this item? It's okay. I can talk about it and send it in an email if need be. So when I requested this data from Anthem, and they sent these helpful charts, but I saw that behavioral health appointments were at 0. I think it is a big call for a communication campaign that we need to host. We have quite a few services for our members that surround behavioral health support, including both some wellness services and also some services through Anthem. And so I requested that Anthem create some flyers that we can disseminate to our members. And so they sent over 2 examples of what we could send out in an email and also post to our website. We could also talk about potentially sending them to school sites so we can increase, first, the awareness that Life Health Online has behavioral health appointments, and then also hopefully some utilization.
Rachel?
So we have seen, as staff, at least I've seen, a number of emails in the last several months, specifically about behavioral health, that this was an option. And so we are getting email contact in some manner, shape, or form to at least some of our members. And I think additional access would be useful. As well as it might be worthwhile if we have access to perhaps a video of how to get through the app, because the app has changed again, and it may not be as easy to navigate and find what you're looking for unless you know what you're looking for.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. It's always helpful to watch someone else do it before you try and navigate it yourself. So I'll ask Anthem if they have a tool similar to that, and if not, we can talk about building one internally.
I do have a question on the bottom half of this attachment. In the middle, there's a usage by state. If this is, is it like based on like GPS tracking or their area code on their phone number? Retirees.
So I'm gonna think that that's part of the intro when you're signing in.
Okay.
It is.
Yeah, about
It
your
is.
location of where you currently are. And this could come from, because Life Health is all a virtual service, this could come from someone on vacation or any retiree that doesn't live in Nevada.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Also, we have employees with dependents who are in college and in different states as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you. Any other questions on this item? Okay, we will move on to item 2.08, approval of the minutes of the December 20th, 2023 meeting of the Group Insurance Committee. And this item is for possible action. Would you mind if we get the minutes up on the screen? Thank you. That's the right attachment. Yes.
Rachel Drake, I move that we approve the minutes as presented.
Thank you, Rachel. Is there any public comment on this item? No? All right, thank you. Okay, now we can entertain a second to that motion.
I moved my arm, but yes, I can second.
All right, Eric Diamond with a second, thank you. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, moving on to closing items. Item 3.01, we have public comment. Is there any further public comment? No? Okay. Our next meeting is scheduled for March 20th, 2024. I assume here at the boardroom at 4 p.m. And with that, that ends our meeting.